Are you feeling like something needs to change? Like life could be so much more than it is, but it feels like nothing is happening? Any man with an ounce of testosterone in his veins knows what I'm talking about. It's that impulse, that drive within us to rise up and make something of ourselves in this world where all of the spoils go to the top. But how do you actually do this? You know, everybody wants to make something of themselves, but most people go day by day, month by month, year by year with basically nothing changing. Looking back on my life, I realized that all of the big changes that happened in my life came by following a very similar formula. When I went from failing college classes and smoking weed to getting my real estate license and starting a successful career, or when I went from losing my job at the beginning of COVID, getting dumped by this girl I'd been talking to turning that into a situation where I got in the best shape of my life, started my first online business, and actually ended up doing better than I was when I had that job. Each time that I have made big changes in my life, it came from accidentally following a process that basically every successful person follows. It involves a period of totally locking in. You cut out all distractions, all the people that are holding you back, and all those bad habits you have. And when you do this, things can change really fast. We're talking about accomplishing more in 3 months than most people accomplish in 3 years. So in this video, I'm gonna break this down into a 6-step process you can follow to disappear for 3 months and come back unrecognizable. Let's get started with step 1. So this is an exercise that has helped me make big changes in my life. I call it the 3 paths exercise. What you need to do is create 3 versions of yourself in 3 months' time. The first version of you is the version of you that fails. You give into all of your bad habits, you're lazy, compulsive, and you basically accomplish nothing. Ask yourself, what is your life gonna look like in 3 months if you give in and act like this version of yourself? Are you gonna be working a crappy job you hate? Your health is spiraling. You gave into your compulsive behaviors and now you feel horrible about yourself. Now, the second version of you is the version where you do the basic stuff correctly. You know, you eat well, you stay off your bad habits, you know, you work hard at your job, and you're probably gonna find yourself in a much better spot in 3 months than you are right now just by doing these basic things. Now, the third version of you is the version of you where you go all in and completely transform your life. I want you to ask yourself, what could my life look like in 3 months if it was absolutely the best it could possibly be? These are your 3 paths. The path where you fail, the path where you do all the basic stuff correctly and your life's a little bit better than it is right now, and the path where you absolutely crush it and completely transform your life. Each one of these 3 versions of yourselves carries themselves differently, does different behaviors, and handles situations differently. And by creating that awareness, you can start to make sure that you behave correctly. Ask yourself in particular about the difference between the version of yourself that completely fails and the version of yourself that absolutely crushes it. Put those 2 people in the same situation and how do they handle it? How do these 2 versions of yourself handle a setback or rejection? What time of day does each version of you wake up at? Does the ultimate version of yourself need motivation to do what he knows he needs to do, or does he rely on discipline and doesn't concern himself with how he feels? The power of this exercise is it creates accountability because you can clearly look and see, okay, if I behave in a certain way, I'm gonna get certain results. And so you need to make a conscious decision that you're gonna act like the ultimate version of yourself, or at least at a minimum, the second version of yourself that just does the basic stuff correctly. And your life in 3 months is gonna be a direct reflection of which one of these 3 versions of yourself you choose to act like. Step 2, to change your life, it's important to ask yourself, why isn't it changing right now? Because I'm sure this is not the first time you've thought about making a big change in your life. This probably isn't even the first video you've watched on the subject, yet things aren't changing. So that begs the question, why aren't they changing? And a lot of this comes down to our minds. You see, consciously, you might want to make a big change, but subconsciously, you are still thinking the same thoughts and operating on the same habits and beliefs that got you to the position you're in right now. In my life, I struggled with this in relationships. I had a lot of past experiences that weren't well, things like getting cheated on or friend zoned by girls that I really liked, and this left me with this really poor self-image. And even though on the surface I had completely changed, I was successful in my career, I was in fantastic shape, and I was confident, every time you put me in a situation around a woman that I liked, it's like all of my past would come up. I would feel deeply insecure. I was certain she was going to betray me. What girl could possibly love me? All this stuff just flooding into my mind. And it's like suddenly I could not act like myself. And so situations where a woman was genuinely interested in me, I would end up sabotaging it because I would start behaving like the version of myself that I had been when I was young and got friend zoned and cheated on and just felt unworthy. I finally had enough of this though. I couldn't keep doing this. I realized if I didn't make a change in the way that I was thinking and carrying myself in these situations, I was never gonna have a happy relationship, never really even be able to have a successful dating life. And so what I started doing was every single time I had a negative thought in this area of my life, I would write it down in the notes on my phone. And I must have put up like 200, 300 of these negative thoughts just bombarding me in my mind, all revolving around the same kind of idea that I was unworthy and undesirable. But what happened was after about 2 or 3 days, I started to be able to see the patterns in the way I was thinking and realized just how completely ridiculous it was. It was completely detached from reality. And this allowed me to create some distance from these thoughts and eventually let go of this old story I had been telling myself about who I was. And as soon as I did this, it's like all my confidence came back with women. I felt totally at peace. I felt like myself. I knew I was worthy of an attractive partner, and I wasn't worried about getting cheated on or friend zoned because I just knew that wasn't who I was deep down. I wasn't the kind of guy who had to experience those things. Now, you might not have such traumatic feelings in a certain area of your life, but your thoughts are still controlling your behavior on an unconscious level, and that's why you keep getting the same results over and over again. Most of your thoughts are so familiar to you that you don't even question them. Every time you try and get on a diet, you get this thought that comes into your head that says, it's okay if we break our diet today, or I just don't really feel like going to the gym. And you're so used to thinking these thoughts that you don't even recognize you're thinking them. You just accept them as the way it is, and then you let them control your behavior. And that's why you keep getting bad results in the gym. And this happens in every area of our lives. So if you can change the way you're thinking about something, you're gonna change the results you get. It's just like changing the software on a computer. If you change the software, you can change the programs that the computer runs and the results that it can get for you. And logically, it's gonna be the same for you and your mind. Your thoughts are software, and if you can just reprogram them, then you can get different results. So start by becoming aware of the thoughts that you are currently thinking. If you want to increase your income, start writing down everything that you're thinking when it comes to your money or your career. You're gonna start to notice patterns, and those patterns are gonna tell you a lot about how you see yourself, and they're gonna make sense of a lot of the results that you're getting. But the pattern is also gonna start looking completely absurd to you. You'll start seeing how your thoughts are telling you that you're unworthy of success, or don't bother trying very hard because you're probably gonna fail anyways. Maybe you have thoughts of entitlement, feeling like you deserve results without having to put in the work, and this means that you don't wanna put in a lot of effort. You're gonna start to realize how illogical all of these thoughts are, and you're gonna start to see that your thoughts have kept you in this distorted reality, which is keeping you from achieving your goals. And then you can work to form different thinking habits through things like affirmations and visualization. And if you do this practice for a couple weeks, you will already see massive changes in the way that you are talking to yourself, and that will completely change your behaviors. This leads us to step 3, which is change your algorithm. At the time of this upload, we just went through the 2024 presidential elections, and if you're like most people, this probably distracted you at least a little bit. And that's totally normal. You know, when big events are happening, they are going to distract us a little bit. But the thing I want you to notice about this is if you were paying attention to the elections, notice how a lot of the other things you were interested in started to fade into the background. Maybe you were on this crazy fitness arc for a while and you got completely sidetracked by politics and fell off your diet and stopped training, or maybe it was even more subtle than that. It's just that you had less motivation for goals because you were preoccupied by paying attention to this thing. And even if you didn't pay attention to politics, I'm sure you can relate this experience to something in your life. There's probably been this time where you got really interested in something and everything else that you had been interested in kind of just faded to the background. It seemed like you stopped thinking about it. What you pay attention to has a huge impact on what you're thinking about, and what you're thinking about, as we've already demonstrated, has a lot to do with the actions you're going to take and the results you're getting. And in our modern world where we've got all these social media companies that are focused on keeping your attention, attention. If you get focused on something, you get sucked into this algorithmic echo chamber where all of your interests that you've been watching content on just keep getting fed back to you over and over again, and it becomes impossible to grow. And the way to fix this is to change your algorithm, meaning change what you're consuming. Clear your YouTube search history and go consciously select videos that you want to watch on topics that you want YouTube to feed you more content on. So like if you're feeling like you want to get motivated, you want to change your life right now, go watch a David Goggins podcast and suddenly you'll get all this self-improvement content fed back to you on your homepage. And this is going to make it so much easier for you to stay thinking self-improvement thoughts and keeping all that constructive stuff in your head, as opposed to going down some junk rabbit hole where you're watching all this sports content or wasting a bunch of time on politics. And along with this, read some new books. I have never read a book and not had it change the way I was thinking. So if you're conscious about reading books on subjects that you want to think about, you can literally start changing the texture of your mind within a couple of weeks of just reading on a specific subject. Step 4, change your behaviors. I'm really hammering on this because it's so important. If you don't make changes to your behavior and your thinking, you're gonna get the same results. That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Now, the first part of change is changing your thinking, which we've already addressed, but you also need to change the actions you are taking. There's nothing more satisfying than taking action and watching it have a direct impact on the results you're getting in your life. It's such an empowering feeling. You want to pick several mentors who are ahead of you on the journey in whichever areas of life that you're really wanting to improve on, and you want to copy their actions. If you want to get in great shape, go watch, Chris Bumstead's workout videos and do the same exercises he's doing. Listen to what he says about diet. Go find a nutrition expert like Paul Saladino and eat what he says to eat. There's this big mistake that we all like to make when we're starting off on some path of self-improvement, and it's the mistake of telling ourselves, I'm gonna do it my way. And this is such an ignorant, stupid thing to do, and I've done it a bunch. It's where, yeah, all those people are successful. Yeah, listen, I'm special. I'm gonna do it my way. And then guess what happens? You don't get results until you humble yourself enough to just do what the successful people already did. So save yourself the trouble of wasting your time taking a bunch of action that's not gonna work and just do what the successful people did. Step 5, a big part of changing your life comes down to knowing what to put your effort into. For example, if you want to start making more money, one thing you can do is, let's say you're working at like McDonald's or something, you could go work overtime at McDonald's and make a little bit more money, or you could go learn some sort of skill that takes you from a minimum wage employee to somebody making 6 figures. The point is that you can take a lot of action, but the biggest thing with the actions you're taking is making sure that they are actions that actually can have a big payoff for you. That's why identifying high leverage activities is our 5th step. When I was in my early 20s, I was in pretty good shape, but I wasn't in great shape. I hadn't achieved the real fitness goals that I had at the time. I really wanted to get my 6-pack finally, to the point where I could just walk around with a 6-pack instead of having to squeeze my abs really hard and hope that the right lighting would hit it so I could say that I had a 6-pack. Now, I could have doubled down on my training, which I was already doing well. I could have gone from 90-minute workouts to 120-minute workouts. I could have upped the intensity, and maybe this would have helped some. Honestly, it probably would have been counterproductive, but it really wouldn't have mattered because the high leverage activity for me was improving my diet, which to that point I had been pretty lazy about doing. It didn't matter if I did thousands of sit-ups. If I wasn't gonna clean up my diet, I was not gonna have the abs I wanted. So I started taking my diet seriously. I figured out how to track my calories, how much I should be eating, and how much protein to take. And in no time, I transformed my physique and I achieved my fitness goals. Whatever you want to accomplish in these 3 months, you don't have time to waste on things that aren't really effective. If you want a big change quickly, you have to make sure you're focusing on the right actions. Don't make the mistake that so many people make of just flailing around trying a bunch of actions. Somebody says they want to get in fantastic shape, and so they start taking cold showers. Like, what the hell does a cold shower have to do with getting jacked? All this kind of behavior does is lead to a victim mentality, because it means you take a bunch of action, you're trying all this different stuff, but you don't get good results from it, and this makes you feel like the world's out to get you. I could never change, but it's really your fault because you're doing a bunch of low leverage activities. Like, I'll get people sometimes in fitness asking me like, hey, should I take creatine to get jacked and stuff like that? And I'm like, bro, you're fat and you're weak. Go clean up your diet and start working out, and then we can talk about creatine. Be honest with yourself and ask, what do I need to do to change my life? And it's probably gonna be something that you really don't want to do. It just seems like it's always the case that the thing that will most help you is the thing you've been avoiding. It's easy to obsess over the latest supplement fad. It's hard to actually be disciplined on your diet and go train hard in the gym, but that's the thing that's actually gonna get you the fitness transformation that you want. Step 6, your feelings. If I've done my job right in this video, you're motivated. You're feeling ready to go take some action. You're so sure right now that you're gonna change your life, but what happens in 3 days when that feeling's faded? What happens when your comfortable routine starts calling your name and it becomes easy for you to make excuses for, oh, it's, I didn't sleep good last night, so I'll just hit snooze on my alarm. Oh, I don't really need to work out in the morning. I'll do it in the evening. Then the evening comes around, you're tired and you don't go to the gym. This is the make or break moment when you start feeling comfortable, when you're less motivated and it feels easy to just give in. This is when you have to say, your feelings and stay disciplined. You can have the best plan in the world, but if you aren't consistent with it, it's not gonna get you anywhere. I work as a real estate agent, and the main way that I get business is by posting content on Instagram. Now, for the first 4 months that I posted every single day on Instagram, it was crickets. I got nothing. I was stressing out. I was like, oh my God, like, am I gonna fail at this? Do I need to go try a different way to get business? Maybe I should just quit. But luckily at this point, I knew that all good things come from following a good plan consistently over time and just trusting that process. So I stuck with it. I ignored those voices in my head, those feelings that were telling me, just quit. It's never gonna work out for you. And finally, I got a client, and then I got another client. Now I've got a bunch of clients from doing this. Imagine if I had quit because my feelings were hurt that I wasn't getting business fast enough. Listen guys, I've given you the steps in this video to change your life, and there's a ton of other people who have given out the steps as well. You've probably watched their videos too, but at the end of the day, none of us can drag you across the finish line if you're just gonna give up every time that you don't feel like doing the work. Everybody knows that success is hard, but then when it gets hard, everybody acts like it shouldn't be this way. This is the hard part. It's doing the thing that you don't want to do, but acting like you love it and doing it anyways. I remember when I got my real estate license, I studied 6 to 8 hours a day for 5 months to pass this exam, and I hated studying. I don't think I'd ever studied for anything in my life. I definitely did not try in high school. This was probably the first time I'd put serious effort into any class, and I really didn't want to do it. But I knew on those days, even when I didn't feel like doing the work, and my friends who were out getting drunk at the frat party were inviting me to come, I knew that I would be kicking myself if I failed that test by 1 point and I looked back on that one day where I mailed it in and I didn't really try. And so I used that as motivation. I said, I am not gonna fail myself this time. And you need to have that same mindset for yourself. I'm sure you've tried to change your life multiple times at this point. And you're probably like, man, is this time gonna be any different? It's up to you. Are you gonna say, your feelings and do what you need to do regardless of how you feel, or are you gonna once again give into your feelings on day 3, day 7, day 14 when you just don't feel like doing it anymore? It's really in your hands. Stick to the plan, guys. You can achieve anything with consistency. Thanks for watching. I hope you crush the rest of 2024 moving into 2025 and make this the best time of your life. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.